Hi, this is Miss Davis, and this is a day one look at our public speaking class for the semester. This is primarily for parents and students who were not able to join us on the first day of class. So, taking a look at this letter here, this was sent home in paper format, but we'll take a look at it on the computer here. Starts off with a little brief introduction to the public speaking course. Now, there are a couple things that I kind of understand as we start public speaking that we'll deal with as kind of givens within the class. The first is that public speaking is year after year after year the number one fear of people in America. So I know that the vast majority of students walking into this class are at least a little nervous, if not absolutely petrified of what's ahead of us. And so I understand that. I'll share some of my own experiences with that a little later in the semester. But for sure, I understand that issue. The second thing, though, is that we have to expect that public speaking is going to be part of our life in the real world, whether that is a job interview or a presentation at work or sharing our ideas in a committee, or if we have a really ambitious student amongst us who really wants to go out on the public speaking circuit. Each of those is a reality in the real world. And so even the most timid amongst us is going to have to, in some way, publicly speak out there. I'll tell the students on day one, and I'll continue this narrative over the course of the semester. Our goal for the course is to take everyone, no matter where each individual student is on day one, and by the end of the semester, our goal is to be better. That will mean a huge variety of things based on where the students start and what their individual goals are. And that's fine, but our goal is that each of us will be better by the end of the semester. The second paragraph deals with grading processes. We'll go a little bit more in depth in that a little later on. And then as far as classroom needs, the students will need some kind of folder to keep their accumulated work together in. I won't be grading portfolios or anything that direction. It's just for their own personal use. A charged Chromebook and writing utensil are expected every day in class. Textbooks will need to be brought on days that chapters are due. Dressing up is always kind of a huge question mark. Yes, we do dress up for our presentations in class. What level of dress is hugely varied depending on the type of speech. Our more informal speeches, like our oral interpretation of literature, will require less dressing up. Later in the semester, and you can take a look at the calendar and see what dates exactly, we will be delivering persuasive speeches. That will be the highest level of dress for our classes. For the persuasive speeches, it's expected that students will wear dress pants, shirts and ties, skirts and shirts, or dresses. So know that that is coming down the road a little bit, and consider this fair warning to make sure that your student can borrow or purchase those items if needed. Then we have a list of kind of what is in the packet. And the very bottom of this page is a sheet just for the student and the parent to sign and send back in. It's also worth 20 points, but it allows us to just know that we're in communication here at the beginning. You've seen all of the course expectations, and you understand kind of where we're going. So make sure that that gets sent in by the due date that is listed on the sheet of paper. Okay. Next, let's take a look at our speech classroom rules. Da-da-da. These are the big 5 rules that apply all over Perry Meridian High School. In my class, they may look a little different because speech is inherently a little different. Coming Ready to Learn will deal with having read your homework and prepared for any quizzes. You'll bring your charged laptop ready to go, textbooks on days that will need it, and any other class items as those moments arrive. Be responsible. I can't grade a laptop screen, so your works cited pages will need to be printed out in advance. Be responsible for those things. We are very much on the same team in class, and so it's really important that we are responsible for our own pieces of the team functions very well. Probably the 2 biggest pieces of the puzzle for this particular course are now highlighted. First, be respectful. Be respectful of the teacher, yeah, but also be respectful of each other. Inherently, in this type of class, we're going to have all kinds of different viewpoints and thoughts and ideas coming forward. Listen open-mindedly, disagree thoughtfully, and continue to respect regardless. We will learn how to share opinions of each other's work with kindness and to hear that constructive feedback open-mindedly. And that's really important. I tell the students on day one, I don't care what your past experiences have been with anyone in the classroom. Any garbage between you needs to stay in the hallway and it never comes into my class. As far as safety in my room, this deals usually with things other than physical safety. We don't run into too many physical risks in a speech class. However, what we do run into are kind of mental and emotional risks. And so it's really important that we understand that my classroom will always be a no teasing zone, period, end of question. Again, almost everyone is walking in with some amount of apprehension. And it's really important that those pieces of apprehension are not reinforced by peers behaving in a teasing manner. That last part that says that speeches of classmates should never be fodder for hallway conversation is also really important. I tell the students on day one, I have seen speech classes of a variety of success rates, and the most successful among them have understood they're on the same team, and they have supported each other. They have been invested personally in the successes of each other, not just because they want to hear a really good speech rather than a really bad one, but because they want to see that person improve. Also, I tell the students on day one, that classroom needs to be kind of like Las Vegas. And we all know that the ad line for Vegas is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Students will be more open to sharing their actual thoughts, opinions, and experiences if they know that that's not going to become table gossip for the cafeteria or hall gossip for the passing periods. I have seen some pretty amazing work come out of classes where they've really bought into these two elements of our classroom behavioral expectations. Being positive, we are each other's cheerleaders. Everyone wants you to succeed because everyone wants to see good work come from you. On a very self-interested front, that's just true. Even if we just start on self-interest, by the end of the semester, I've discovered the students are really rooting for each other in that class. So stay positive and constructive, and things will go well together. Then we have some basic overview of kind of what the class will look like. We'll get into more depth on that as we go through. Attention to be drawn to this completing and returning homework section. I want to go through these items with you because they are incredibly important. And so it's key that we have an understanding on this in the beginning. Reading quizzes will happen on the day the assignment is due. All of those are noted in the class calendar we'll look at in a minute. We will be having quizzes on those days. It is important that you come in with a basic understanding of the vocabulary that's been introduced in those. That allows us to go beyond the basics in class and actually learn some skills. Students will be signing up for and choosing the date and time of their speeches. Please be communicating back and forth between students and parents about personal conflicts. I have seen a number of times where a student has signed up for a speech time only to go home and find out that they have an orthodontist appointment on that date. So make sure that those communication lines are open so that students can freely sign up for the date and time of their choosing. Here is an important piece. No late speeches will be accepted from students who are present on the time and day for which they have signed up. If you are there, you give the speech or you take a 0. Now, I understand that sometimes the real world involves itself in our classroom behaviors. So I understand that sometimes things throw a wrench in that plan. Communicate with me. I'm not inhuman. I do understand that those things happen. But at the same point in time, those will be the exception to the rule and not the rule. So if you're in class on the day that your speech is due, you deliver it. As far as late speeches, I don't take them. If you are there, you give it. There's no tomorrow. It's today or a 0. If you are absent on the day that you will deliver a speech, then the speech must be delivered on the next available Blue 63 class or after school with an audience of at least 10 people that you provide. That's important. Speech makeup is not the same thing if it's just a student talking to me in a classroom. An audience is necessary. It's a huge element of public speaking. It's not really public speaking if you're just talking to me. So that audience of 10 people will need to be provided. The day before speeches start, students will be required to demonstrate work progress, just show that they've done something. If they have done nothing 24 hours before we start, they will be disallowed from participation in that unit, and a 0 will be given on the speech. The debate unit is the very last thing we do on the semester, and it is now a pre-qualification unit. Back when I first started teaching speech, everyone did a debate, and it was a nightmare for very many of us. The biggest problem was that students who weren't really ready with the skills development at that point in time to succeed at a speech were still on speech teams, which means that they were miserable and struggling to keep their heads above water, and their teams were not getting the quality of work because they weren't all on even keels there. So now, in order to deliver a debate, you have to have an A or a B average at the end of our special occasion speech unit. If you have an A or a B, you'll go on to a debate. There's a whole process for choosing a topic and a side and team members that we'll go over way closer to time. If your student is at a C or below level at that point in time, then we just know that the skills aren't quite ready for a debate yet. So instead, that student will be given another shot at a previous speech type that we have executed at that point. So if we struggled a little bit on persuasives, that student will do another persuasive. If we struggled a little bit on informatives, that student will do another informative. So everyone will have that final grade in the grade book, but it will be individualized based on where the student's skill sets are on that moment. Okay. Meet dress requirement. We talked about that on page 1. If you don't meet the dress requirement, it's a 20% deduction in the grade for that speech. You can still speak if you're not dressed. You'll just drop 20%. I've had students who want to debate, I'm not going to wear fill in the blank here. Cool. 20%. I'm not going to argue it. It's just how the policy goes. Students are expected to meet time requirements. You will always be given a time frame, like for instance, 3 to 5 minutes. If you are 15 or more seconds under that time requirement, it is 40% off your grade. You will not pass that speech if you are under by 15 or more seconds. That is significant and important. But if you are under by 15 or more seconds, it means that you have missed significant and important pieces that should have been in your speech. So it's important to know where your time is rolling, and the only way to do that is rehearse, 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 rehearse. It shouldn't be any kind of shock. No one is going to stand up with a 4-minute speech and run 2:45 when you're in delivery if you've rehearsed it enough. So know where you stand in advance so that you're not running under. Going over is also a problem, though at least that does mean you've got too much information rather than too little. If you hit 30 seconds over, it will be 10% off for every 30 seconds you are over the speech. Classroom appropriateness. I always tell students that they should be able to deliver this in front of me, mom, the principal, and grandma with no fear of repercussions. If you violate certain standards of classroom appropriateness, I will stop the speech immediately and you will be awarded no higher than 50% on the entire speech score. Students are expected to write their own speeches. Plagiarism is a huge problem. We have a township policy against it, we have a building policy against it, and my policy against it, which is that on the first instance, I'll contact home. It will go in the grade book with a 0 on the written portion of the speech. Any further instances will be a 0 on the entire speech grade. The fact is that I, every semester, seem to have some students who plagiarize without really realizing it. We will go in depth over appropriate citation mechanisms and how to use those in class. It's important that you kind of internalize those skills in order to make sure that you are not inadvertently plagiarizing, because inadvertent plagiarism, still plagiarism. Okay, grading policy has a list here of kind of what all will be available over the course of the semester and how those percentages weigh out. We'll have 18 quizzes. There are going to be 6 separate speeches over the course of the semester. And clearly that speech point, those speech points at 600 points are a huge portion of what we're doing, but that does balance out with things like participation grade, etc. The semester point grades will be 85% of the semester grade, with the written final exam being worth 15%. As far as classroom participation, there's an entire other video on Class Dojo, so take a look at that and sign up so that you can make sure that you are keeping track of that 200-point piece of the puzzle as we go on for the semester. Okay, I think that is everything. Oops, no, it's not. Calendar. Okay, no, I know we are not in school on January 2016 for the 16-17 school year. It's a formatting thing. Here we go. Okay, so once we come back in, you'll see that every day has kind of a layout here of what our expectations are for what we'll be due. It'll say, for instance, next Tuesday, Chapter 2 is due, and we'll have a 10-point quiz, and we'll be talking about fear and what it is. Okay, so as you go through the semester, if you want to know what we're doing on November the 10th, we're in the middle of special occasion presentations. You can look and see. Now, clearly, there might be some flexibility to this if there are, for instance, weather issues, but this is where we're starting off over the course of the semester. This allows you to plan ahead for doctor's appointments and things as such as well. So you'll see that the points are listed. If it is due, that is the due date for a speech. So it is incredibly important that you have read Chapter 5 by August 9th so that you can complete the quiz in class with success. Everything is kind of laid out. You can see, for instance, the work days into the prep check days are noted as well, and then the performance days. So our first speech will be delivered on August 31st. So we've got a month or so to kind of rein in some of the specifics on how to deliver that. Once we get into our persuasive speech, our informative speeches, then it's kind of kick up your heels and we're off to the races, because from September 14th to the end of the semester, we will have 5 speeches happening in that frame of time. So it's pretty important to understand that the heaviest weighting of the class points happens from that point forward. And then that cutoff date then for your debate will be in November, because I said that would be at the end of special occasion presentations. So the grade cutoff will be November 15th to be at that A or B to qualify for debate. And otherwise, the people who are at a C or below will be doing a previous type of speech again. So everything is kind of laid out on the speech calendar. Take a look at that, stay up to date. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please contact me at sdavis@prairieschools.org, and I'll be more than happy to chat with you and see what answers we can get for you. Look forward to the semester. Have a great one.